Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you kindly for stopping by. If you haven't had a chance to look at any of our MindSpeak sessions from 2014, they include Dr. Richard Sesibera, the Secretary General of the EAC, Charles Ireland, CEO of EABL and a great Chelsea fan, Dr. Titus Naikuni of Kenya Airways, and of course Christine Lagarde of the IMF. That link is on Rich Wrap-Ups if you would care to have a look. My home thoughts start with a view of Nairobi seen from the Mombasa Road I took more than 30 days ago, and I look back at the photograph and I quite liked it actually. And that took me to Jorge Luis Borges. The mind was dreaming, the world was its dream. And this, if I could live again my life, in the next I'll try, make more mistakes. I won't try to be so perfect. I'll be more relaxed. I'll take fewer things seriously. I'll take more risks. I'll take more trips. I'll watch more sunsets. I'll climb more mountains. I'll swim more rivers. I'll go to more places I've never been. I'll eat more ice, I'll have more real problems and less imaginary ones. If I could live again, I will travel light. If I could live again, I'll try to work bare feet. At the beginning of spring till the end of autumn, I'll watch more sunrises. If I have the life to live. I'll put up a photograph of him. And yesterday I spent most of my weekend in a very hot sweat and a delirium with spikes of exquisite shooting pain running up and down my body. And then when I logged onto Twitter on Sunday afternoon, I saw this tweet from @Nilofer. You know the best part about pain, it lets you know you're not dead. Well, that was certainly got me thinking. Political reflections, Syria's Assad claims upper hand in war turning point. This is a turning point in the crisis, he said. He added that his army was winning what he called the war against terror. And it really is quite an extraordinary turnaround, because there was a time in 2011, 2012, 2013 when the idea that he would remain this long was really a completely outlier idea. Put up a photograph of him. I read an article on the Brookings Institute, and it had this comment at the end: a new style of global competition, one that in the Middle East, Russia and its clients are winning, and the United States, despite huge natural advantages, is losing. Brzezinski sees Finlandization of Ukraine as a deal maker. The US and European allies have room for compromise with Russia over Ukraine if Russian President Putin doesn't act impulsively to seize more territory, said Zbigniew Brzezinski. He might still act impulsively, and that would be extremely dangerous. There remains a chance for a compromise solution, and I think we should be working for it. The posture of Finland, which also has a long border with Russia, offers a possible model. A resolution may be possible in which Ukraine deals with us by wanting to move closer to Europe, but also has a relationship with Russia like Finland does. I concluded by saying it's really a game of hardball now, and Putin is seeking to keep Kiev's feet to the fire. And to wit this comment, the border build-up may be mainly a negotiating tactic with Western leaders. The military are there in principle so that people agree to talk to Putin about Ukraine's future. Putin realizes that if there is no risk of the crisis worsening, no one will bring him into discussions on the Ukraine. And in the same spat, Putin told the US not to read others' letters. This is his response to US comments about a proposal he sent to European leaders seeking talks about Ukraine's gas debt and supplies, saying it is not good to read other people's letters. In a letter to 18 European leaders on Thursday, Putin said Russian gas supplies to Europe could be disrupted if Moscow cuts the flow to Ukraine over unpaid bills, drawing a US accusation that Russia is using energy as a tool of coercion. I, of course, wrote that piece on the 17th of March, and in that piece I said it was Vladimir Brzezinski who said, Ukraine, a new and important space on the Eurasian chessboard, is a geopolitical pivot because its very existence as an independent country helps to transform Russia. Without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be a Eurasian empire. If Moscow regains control of Ukraine with its 52 million people and major resources as well as access to the Black Sea, Russia automatically again regains the wherewithal to become a powerful imperial state spanning Europe and Asia. Now, the MH370, this is a report that found its way into the Daily Mirror, has been hijacked and is in Afghanistan. Russian intelligence source claims all passengers and crew are alive but held hostage. The source told the paper flight MH370 missing on March 8 with 239 passengers was hijacked. The pilots are not guilty. The plane was hijacked by unknown terrorists. We know that the name of the terrorist who gave instructions to pilots is Hitch. The plane is in Afghanistan, not far from Kandahar, near the border with Pakistan. I'm going back to Thomas Pynchon's Bleeding Edge. No matter how the official narrative of this turns out, these are the places we should be looking, not in newspapers or television, but at the margins, graffiti, uncontrolled utterances, bad dreamers who sleep in public and scream in their sleep. And then The Independent is carrying a report saying the missing Malaysian airline flight was thrown around like a fighter jet in a bid to dodge radar detection after it disappeared. An unnamed source cited by the Sunday Times added that the officials are now convinced that the plane was flown very low at very high speed and it was being flown to avoid radar. I, for one, think that that story has an equal likelihood as the story of the black box being somewhere in the Indian Ocean where they're purportedly looking for it. Euro 138.57, it weakened against most of its peers after Draghi said its strength requires further monetary stimulus. He seems to be trying to draw a line in the sand at this 139-140 area. Dollar index 79.59, Japanese yen 101.64, Swissy 0.8768, the pound 167.36, and I think that's going to up about 173.50. Aussie 0.9395, India rupee 60.35, South Korean won 1037.50, the Real 221.88, and has posted 4 straight weeks of gains. Egyptian pound 688.93 and the South African rand 1050.61. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index, and Janet Yellen speaks twice this week, and it'll be interesting to see that to keep an eye on the tonality of her comments, because she was quite hawkish the first time and then the minutes were quite soft, so it's going to be interesting to see where she comes out. Euro dollar 138.57, remember it touched 139.67 on March 13, which was the strongest since October 2011, and that was a big prompt for Draghi to come and speak about the euro. He's basically trying to defend the 139 level. Above 139, you're getting to the top of the longer term range. I've always said that the exchange rate is not a policy target, but it's important for price stability and growth. And now what has happened over the last few months has become more and more important for price stability. Dollar yen 101.64, we're at the top of the range here. But let's keep an eye on it. Gold had a strong session, 13 to 26.945. Increased geopolitical premiums lifted both gold and crude oil, which I'll put up a chart for that as well. I think crude oil is expensive here, but clearly it's now reacting to the Ukraine situation, and gold as well, but I think gold remains expensive. Coffee, have a look at this. We're back above the 200 mark. We've really had an astonishing rally this year. Emerging markets, I couldn't resist this photograph by regular Observer 20 gallery contributor Yasuyoshi Chiba. People play football during sunset at Ipanema Beach in Rio de Janeiro. Coming to Africa, Guinea-Bissau counts votes after big turnout in crucial poll. The front-runner of 13 presidential candidates is Jose Mario Vaz, the former finance minister running for the dominant African party for the independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. Put up a photograph of him. South African all-share up 5.17% in 2014, fell more than 1% on Friday, and that was led by the likes of Naspers in what has been a synchronized technology sell-off across the world. Dollar rand, I'll put up a 3-month chart. I still think that we're going to head towards 10 in point of fact. Problem is where to get in. Egyptian dollar 699.05. The Egyptian stock market up 16.92% in 2014, down about 8 percentage points from more than 60-month highs hit earlier this year. The Nigerian all shares down 4.09% in 2014. I'll put up a screen grab taken on March 24th from a video showing a man claiming to be the leader of the Boko Haram, Abu Bakr Shakal. In a rambling video sermon last month, Boko Haram's leader took credit for similar attacks and threatened more to come. There are only 2 groups of people in the world, he said. There are either those who are with us or against us, he said, flanked by rifle-toting gunmen. This is my only focus now. The Ghana Stock Exchange is up 8.84% in 2014. Interesting report in the FT saying Africa must invest borrowings wisely. Talking of a remarkable transformation. Magnet for international investors. Private flows to sub-Saharan African countries doubled in 2010 to 2012 compared to 2000 to 2007. Talking about African countries raised a record $10 billion from the global bond market, up from $1 billion a decade ago. Welcome development. It is better that Africa relies on public capital markets than on shadowy deals with China. Market so far has not enforced much discipline, but that's the point I was making, that actually the bond market, by allowing a real-time continuous pricing of your credit risk, actually has a normative function and improves policy making, because it makes it more difficult to act outside a certain envelope. Saying third, the reliance on foreign investors leaves Africa exposed to the animal spirits of global markets. That's true. It cannot be avoided. Interesting article in BD Live. African trade routes shift focus from exports to local markets. McKinsey forecasts the African consumer spending will be $1.4 trillion by 2020. And essentially arguing that the domestic markets are now hitting scale, and I think that's quite correct. And it's a process of numbers, also a process of urbanization and consolidating more and more people into our cities. Vitol is also targeting Africa's downstream sector, bidding for a new refinery in Uganda. Vitol sees robust growth in fuel demand on the continent of about 3% a year. I think that underestimates it big time. Talk about LPG. Very interesting article. Do have a look. It's on Rich Wrap-Up. Coming here to Kenya, Times Media buys stake in Kenya's Radio Africa. I wrote the following: late Friday, we learned that Times Media of South Africa was set to acquire a 49% interest in Radio Africa Limited. The transaction actually had been flashing on my radar ever since Gafler had broken the story. Factually incorrect, but they broke it. The total purchase consideration is $18.62 million, which equates to a value of $38 million for the entire business. As a comparison, Standard Group has a market cap of $25.9 million. Patrick Kwaku, and I call him a West African sapper because he's always extremely well turned out, and William Pike have been friends since the day I set foot in Nairobi. And they've been real gutsy, entrepreneurial and insurgent, and proof that with guts and brains you can navigate your way amongst much bigger beasts. Radio Africa Group is a radio, TV and newspaper business in Kenya, operating 3 of the top 5 radio stations in Nairobi, namely KISS, Radio Jambo and Classic 105. Also broadcasts XFM and East FM. Times Media publishes South African newspapers Business Day, Sunday Times, listed on the stock exchange. Says it's a media and entertainment company that informs, educates, entertains and connects people. As a rationale for the move, TMG said the acquisition represents a significant opportunity to realize TMG's strategy of geographical and format diversification, as well as harness its existing content and management expertise. In the past year, TMG has successfully acquired a stake in Ghana's Multimedia Group Limited and bought controlling interests in 2 radio stations in South Africa, Rise FM and Vuma FM. Radio attracts by far the largest share of advertising spend in the Kenyan market, and television is second, but with strong growth prospects. Business fits well into TMG's broadcast expansion strategy in South Africa and the continent, provides a growth opportunity in print, not available in SA. The group also noted Kenya has a highly developed mobile market which will provide advertising and e-commerce opportunities for the group. It's very clear to me, and I wrote about this when I visited South Africa, that South Africa Inc. is carving out a more forward position in sub-Saharan Africa, and this time round it's a 2.0 version, it's a better version. PQ and Radio Africa have excelled at talent retention. If I were TMG, I would be very keen on having management stay in the driver's seat. The pace of buyouts in the East African community continues to accelerate, this being the latest transaction in a string of them that has spanned banking, GT Bank to mention one, advertising, WPP, beauty, L'Oreal, IT, Dimension Data, amongst many other transactions. Kenya has a vibrant media sector, it's a media hub. TMG's acquisition of 49% of the Radio Africa Group does confirm that. Put up a photograph of a selfie taken of Patrick and Dr. Kristen Turner and myself, and another photograph of Patrick speaking in 2012. So I think, it'll make them a much more formidable competitor. In point of fact, a lot more content. I go through these various sites of Times Media. Very interesting. Kenya faces uphill battle to revamp police stem insecurity in the capital, tarred with the nickname Nairobi, and under almost constant threat of attack by Islamist militants, Kenyans are losing patience with the ill-equipped and notoriously corrupt police force. Catalogue of security failures has exposed the inability of Nairobi's underpaid police to deal with the severe security problems, prompting President Uhuru Kenyatta to step in and promise a massive overhaul. He said in his State of the Nation address, unacceptable lack of coordination in our handling of crime, public frustration and anger, bad policing had occasionally boiled over into mob injustice. He said then he would put more officers on the streets. We're going to provide them with 1,200 new vehicles. But clearly, the security situation remains very, very fragile over here. And I don't think markets will be as resilient as they were after Westgate if we have a similar situation. Kenya shilling is around this 86.50 level where it's been for a long time. The Nairobi All-Share closed at a record high on Fridays, up 6.212%, mostly on the back of Safaricom, which traded an enormous number of shares. NSE 20 remains negative for the year, down 4.26%. And if you care to look at any listed share, there's a link on Rich Wrap-Ups for you to do just that. Once again, thank you for stopping by.